Okay, guys, moving right along. We did a classic rock tune. Now let's get things, let's bring things a little bit more up to date. This is a little tune I put together called On the Edge, and it's sort of inspired by my love and adoration of bands like Rage Against the Machine, Stone Temple Pilots, Soundgarden, that kind of stuff, like 90s, 2000s riff-based rock kind of stuff. And that's really like the cool thing that's going to be happening in this tune is we've got this cool little A section riff where we're very much going to be lined up with what the guitar is playing. And we haven't really talked about this yet in the course, but this is another really common thing that especially in like rock, sometimes in country, sometimes in blues or R&B, we have these moments where the guitar and the bass kind of have the same job, which is playing a little riff or a thing that outlines a particular part of the tune. So that's what's going on in our A section. Then in our B section, we go back to more pedaling, but we're not going to be relying as heavily on the passing tones, because that's something that we don't see. We see a little bit less often in modern rock. So there's a lot of good vocabulary on display here in this one, but it's also a great exercise for just like locking in with a cool drum groove and a cool riff. So we're key of E in this whole thing. We're going to be doing a lot of open E. We're going to be using this kind of pentatonic shape. We are, I've said, oh, we don't use open strings on bass. We do use our open E fairly frequently. And then we are going to be using this. It's sort of our low pentatonic box after a fashion. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at. Let's go ahead and play the tune through, and then I'll break it down in a little bit more detail for you. Okay, cool guys, On the Edge, super fun tune, right? A couple very, very neat things going on here. So obviously the two sections again, kind of an A section and a B section. Like I said at the top, we're all in E minor, very much built around our open E, and then kind of moving up, especially in the B section to like 7th fret, A string, kind of home basses. But we really just have this main riff in the A section, which is like open E, 2nd fret, 5th fret, D string, A string, and then 3rd fret, 5th fret, E string. Bom, ba, ba, bom, bom, rest, 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 rest. Bom, ba, ba, bom, bom. And then we just really quick hit open E, and then a D, 5th fret, A string. And this is showcasing a couple of things. First of all, obviously like the guitar is playing the exact same thing. We're playing that riff together. So we're listening to a couple different things. We're listening to the drums for time reference. We're listening to the guitarist to make sure that we are really lining up on where all those notes are landing and like the attack and the tone and all that stuff. There's also a lot of space going on here. Massive amounts of space. And if you guys remember, clear back in one of the first exercises that we did, no, it wasn't clear back, it was just a few lessons ago now, I guess, but we did the thing where, we did like whole notes and then groove with the drums and then pedal 8s and then kind of play with silence, right? Use silence as our music. This is another kind of cool illustration, different context, but it's a cool illustration of how powerful that can be. Just drums, and we completely drop out. The guitar drops out, and it's just this massive space. And what that's doing is it's providing this really cool dynamic juxtaposition with the B section. Which is all just pedaling 3rd fret for a G, 5th fret for an A, open E, little riff, 7th, 5th kind of stuff, moving up to the A string. And then back down to that G, A, open E. 7th, 7th, 5th, right, on that. And then you kind of hold that out and go back around to that A section. So we have all this space in the A section and then a really dense B section. And this is getting more into talking about like genre vocabulary ideas for modern rock. Modern rock tends to be very dynamic. There tends to be a lot of thought and emphasis and kind of experimentation around parts that are really open, parts that are really spacious, parts that are really dense, parts that are more busy, parts that are less busy. There's a lot of stuff of like, building these really great big dynamic arcs, playing around with silence, playing around with space, and the lack of silence and the lack of space. And so I really wanted to make a cool little kind of exercise slash song that showed that off, right? But we're also getting really good practical experience here with, again, locking in on that guitar riff, locking in with the drums, getting those pedaling, eighths down. All that kind of stuff, all that riffing in there, that very pentatonic is all really, really great stuff to know and to think about and learn and get really comfortable doing in terms of bass. Because if you're interested in this style, if you like doing modern rock stuff or even like punk or hard rock, metal or anything like this, this is really where those kinds of shapes, those kinds of techniques, those kinds of picking patterns is really where you're going to get a ton of mileage out of that kind of stuff if you're interested in those kinds of sounds. But in any case, nice tune, pretty simple tune. Still some fun stuff there though. From here, we're going to keep moving right along into the next tune. So once you guys feel good, we will see you there. And 1, 2, 3.